Doctor Who Season by Season. New Who Series 9 Review. The ninth series of televised fan-fiction New Who aired in 2015. It was the second season to star Peter Capaldi as the 12th Doctor, third to star Jenna Coleman as Clara Mary Sue Oswald, and the fifth to be overseen by showrunner Stephen. I ran out of ideas in 2011. Moffat. I know what you're thinking. I said I wasn't going to review this. I said I wasn't going to watch it. What can I say? In true JNT style, I have been persuaded to do so. And yeah, before you ask, I will be watching and reviewing Series 10. Because you demanded it. So it's all your fucking fault. Prior to Series 9 was the 2014 Christmas special Last Christmas. I watched about 10 minutes of this, reached the bit with Santa's elves on Clara's roof and went, yeah, okay. No thanks. Series 9 proper starts with a two-part Dalek story, The Magician's Apprentice. By this point New Who Dalek stories are as inevitably shite as New Who Christmas specials, and this is no exception to that rule, at least from what I could stand of it, which was about 15 minutes of episode 1. Holy shit, that's some bad TV. Those minutes are hogged by three of the most unbelievably awful females on television, the Queen of Smug, Clara, the most dreadful character ever created for Doctor Who, the castrated master, and Kate. My dad was in this show once. Stewart, who continues to have less life in her than your average reality TV show viewer. When Capaldi does come on screen, he's playing a rock concert in medieval times. Or something. And there's the usual repeated dead-end Moffat-era promise that the Doctor's going to die this year. Or something. What a load of witless, tired, painful bollocks this all is. The next story is the Under the Lake two-parter, which shockingly is a vast improvement on everything since Flatline. That is not to say that the story is perfect, because it certainly isn't, and it does go somewhat downhill in the second part, which resorts to tired old Moffat-era time travel, time paradox bullshit, because heaven forfend we have a straight linear narrative in New Who these days. The classic series strictly forbids the Doctor using the TARDIS to go back in time to sort out the problem he was currently in, as they thought it just made for shite storytelling, and the question why he doesn't just do this every week. That says everything about the current era you need to know right there. Still, this one is passable enough, which is a major success by today's standards. The next story is The Girl Who Died, which is a quick return to utter shit. It's hard to believe this is from the guy who wrote Flatline and the Mummy episodes in Series 8, and one can only conclude it's either completely hijacked by Moffat or he's been beaten into shape and told to be as dumbfuck as possible. The level of reality in the show these days is akin to The Simpsons, and this is as tired and unfunny as ever. The next story is The Woman Who Lived. This is slightly less shit than the previous episode, slower paced and with some nice moments between Capaldi and Maisie Williams, but the episode tries to do too much in one go and breaks the show. Don't tell rule of storytelling too much as well. Needless to say, all the stuff with the Lion Man alien is the usual cack-handed, dumb as shite. Next up is another two-parter, The Zygon Invasion. This is a new UNet story, which never bodes well, and fuck me if this isn't as lousy as you expect. The new unit brigade are as tiresome and wooden as ever, and why exactly is this paramilitary organization apparently completely run by women these days? Is this in any way realistic even in this day and age? This might not be so terrible if any of the actresses were in any way competent or charismatic, but fuck me, it's like a parade of unbelievably smug trees. The story itself is utter shit too. I knew this was going to be a piece of shit the moment I heard they were actually seriously going to equate Zygons with immigrants in a piece of shameless PC propaganda, and I was right. Their Zygons were one of the scariest one-off monsters ever in the classic series, and New Who has turned them into a complete joke. Most of them are just really nice people, you know. I mean, what the fuck? If you are going to do such a clumsy, ham-fisted PC piece of metaphorical crap, At least think up your own race and don't completely defang an iconic monster in this fashion. Another piece of Who history utterly crapped on by Moffat. Is there anything left he hasn't made a joke out of yet? While we're on the subject, how come they look so shit? In Terror the Zygons they look organic and real, here in 2015 they're a total joke rubber fest. So much for fucking progress. The next story is Sleep No More, which hilariously opens with a guest character imploring the audience to not watch the episode as once you see it, you can't unsee it. This warning should be placed before pretty much every episode these days and heeded by all sensible viewers, I feel. It's the BBC's moral duty. Anyway, this is a lazy found footage riff, a genre that was played out donkeys years ago and was only rarely any good anyway. It's pretty dull and made infinitely worse by the sheer inane stupidity of the monsters. Sleep Dust. Really? Is there some kind of competition among the high-ups at New Who to come up with the stupidest shit imaginable? If so, it must be pretty hard to pick a winner these days. Fuck a duck. The next story is Face the Raven, which, somehow, staggeringly, is actually pretty good. Wait, what the fuck? How did that happen? Was Moffat asleep the week he let this one go through or something? New writer Sarah Dollard does an impressive job, and while the episode is obviously a low-budget one and is obviously influenced by Harry Potter, it's actually really good. Good dialogue, good performances, nice atmosphere and a story that actually paces its beats perfectly. That the death of Clara, the single most punchably smug character in the history of the series, is caused by her own recklessness and hubris is a moment of deliciously satisfying comeuppance, even if I suspect we're supposed to actually see it as heartbreakingly tragic. The goodbye between her and Capaldi goes on far too long, though, to the point I started yelling, "Oh, just fucking die already!" at the screen. Still, this is good stuff, spoiled only by it being so inherently connected to the next two episodes. The next episode is Heaven Sent, which, like Listen the season before, has been hailed as a classic by Moffat fans but, like Listen the season before, is actually a boring and bootless load of old toss. Capaldi boringly wanders around a boring castle boringly for 52 boring minutes, because apparently 45 minutes just wasn't boring enough this time, and nothing is achieved that couldn't have been done just by Capaldi transporting straight to Gallifrey instead. Wank. The final episode is Hellbent. Most fans, even most New Who fans, have this down as an intolerable piece of shit that does its best to ruin the character and the entire series, and I'm not going to dispute it. I can't get too wound up, though, because at this point it's expected and as far as I'm concerned New Who is only making a joke of itself. However much Moffat desperately wants, none of this shit applies to the original, classic, real series, only the parallel universe fanfic New Who show. New Who fans have a right to be pissed, though. Given the mythic level Gallifrey has been built up to in 10 years of the new series, for Moffat to throw away its return bumming up fucking Clara again is a real joke and slap in the face. And yes, guess what folks, Clara doesn't stay dead and even gets to fuck off in her own TARDIS to have adventures and presumably lots of kinky lesbian sex with Maisie Williams. Lucky bitch. So much for punishing recklessness and hubris. Nope. None of that for New Who. This show now actually rewards such behavior. Series 9 is a gigantic turd, entirely predictable and entirely consistent with the gigantic turds that were Series 8 and Series 7 before it. Can Series 10 be any better? It seems doubtful, though at least it won't have bloody Clara in it, which has got to be an improvement of sorts. Poor Peter Capaldi, so much promise and so far his era has been a gigantic misfire and the worst in the history of the entire series. Series 9 gets another unclassified from me.